Good morning. I am Melissa Southall, the Self-Advocate Coordinator for People First of West Virginia.
And I'm Morgan Spicer, Special Projects Coordinator for the ARC of the Mid-Ohio Valley.
Welcome to Legislative Matters Now with M&M. We're glad you joined us.
Yes, we're so glad you joined us today for this show because we're going to talk about the ABLE Act, the federal law that allows people to save money above the $2,000 spend down that typically affects people who get federal benefits. To further explain what we're talking about, let's get to our Who You Gonna Call segment.
For Legislative Matters Now with M&M, today's question on Who You Gonna Call: you are interested in signing up for a WVABLE account, but you are concerned about being eligible because the onset of your disability did not happen until you were 30 years old. So who are you going to call? Your city council member, B, your state House of Delegates or state senators, C, your U.S. senators or U.S. Congress members, or D, another person who is an expert in the field and can provide additional information. What do you think, Melissa?
D, an expert who is an expert in the field.
All right, Morgan, how about you?
I'm going to go with C, your U.S. Senator or your U.S. Congress member.
All right, well, let's find out. In this case, it is D, another person who is an expert in the field, but that's to find out more about it. As you will learn in the next section, you will find out that you may need to call your U.S. Senator or U.S. Congress member because passed with bipartisan support by Congress in 2014, the Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience Act allows eligible people with disabilities to establish ABLE accounts, which allows them to save for qualified disability expenses without jeopardizing their public benefits. Prior to the passage of the ABLE Act, few saving mechanisms existed that allowed people with disabilities who also utilized public benefits to save more than $2,000 in assets. Unfortunately, ABLE accounts are only available to people whose disability was onset prior to the age of 26. A bill was introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives earlier this year that would help with that situation.
In an effort to better explain about the ABLE account using simpler language, we are going to break down what we just heard during our Who You Gonna Call segment. First of all, ABLE means achieving a better life experience, and it is available to everyone whose disabilities were diagnosed before the age of 26. The program is run in several states across the country, including West Virginia. Allows people to save money and an account that can be used for qualified expenses like rent, food, bills, etc.
Exactly, Melissa. The money you place in the account will not interfere with any Social Security benefits you are currently receiving, so you can deposit money and then use those funds without the fear of losing those benefits you get every month for going over the $2,000 limit. So many more people can benefit from the program if the age of eligibility was changed.
Yes, Morgan. Today we have Roxanne Clay from WVABLE, which is operated out of the Treasurer's Office, to explain the ABLE Adjustment Act and tell everyone what we can do to help get this legislation passed. Thank you, Roxanne, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. And it's an honor. The first time that WVABLE has been a guest on your show. So it's an honor to be here. And thank you so much for the opportunity. And just thanks to People First of West Virginia and the ARC of West Virginia.
What makes this bill so important? And why should advocates get on board with helping this bill get passed?
Sure. So let me mention a few things about the history of the ABLE Act and, of course, WVABLE. As WVABLE, it is based on the federal legislation called the ABLE Act, and the ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. The ABLE Act, like you both, Morgan and Melissa mentioned, it created savings and investment accounts that's designed to enable many eligible individuals with a disability to save and be able to pay for the extra expenses associated with a disability, So currently, in order to be eligible to enroll and own an ABLE account, the onset of the disability would have had to have occurred before the age of 26. So one of the most important benefits, as we know about ABLE accounts, it allows many eligible individuals the ability to save and invest tax-free without being at risk for losing benefits such as SSI, Medicaid, SNAP, and HUD. So monies in an ABLE account must be spent on qualified disability expenses, and that is defined as any expense that benefits the individual with a disability and helps to maintain or improve the health, independence, or quality of life for the beneficiary. So nationwide, as of the end of 2020, there's 82,000 ABLE accounts and $643 million in assets in ABLE accounts nationwide. Now, the ABLE Act also gave the states the mechanisms to create their own ABLE programs. So WVABLE is West Virginia's ABLE plan, as Melissa explained. It's important to know that West Virginia partnered with the Ohio Stable program to offer ABLE accounts to the West Virginia resident. And our program launched February 9th of 2018, and we just celebrated our 3rd year anniversary. So we work very hard to spread the word about WVABLE and inform eligible individuals around the state that the program exists. So with the help of many organizations and programs, including People First of West Virginia and the ARC of West Virginia, who are helping to ensure eligible individuals know about WVABLE, we have seen the program grow steadily. So we now have almost 400 West Virginians with a disability that are saving with WVABLE, and they're realizing the benefits of an ABLE account. Now, total money saved in WVABLE accounts to date is right at over $2 million, and the average account balance is right at $6,000. So that means that we have WVABLE account holders that are saving 3 times the amount they were previously allowed to save, all the while maintaining eligibility for SSI and Medicaid. So that's incredibly important. And so back to your question about what makes this bill so important is, we know the ABLE Act was passed in 2014. It had the most bipartisan support of any bill that passed Congress. The bill was 10 years in the making. It's important to know that the original bill did not have the age cutoff. It included all individuals with a disability. However, as with all proposed legislation, there is a budgeting and a legislative process, and lawmakers, they need to know how much a piece of legislation is going to cost. So in an attempt to keep the cost down, there was a compromise in which they included the age cutoff of 26 at the last minute in order to get the bill to pass. And so now, since the passage of the ABLE Act, the ABLE Age Adjustment Act has been introduced each year. And so this year, there is renewed excitement and hope for the passage of the bill. And what the bill does is it would increase the age of onset of disability from before age 26 to before age 46. So for example, for those listening today, if you have or you know someone else that has a disability in which it did not begin until the age of 35. So under the current ABLE Act, you are not eligible to own an ABLE account. However, if the ABLE Age Adjustment Act were to pass, you would indeed be eligible to own and benefit from an ABLE savings account. So currently, there are 8 million individuals nationwide that are eligible for the ABLE accounts. But if passed, the ABLE Age Adjustment Act would allow for an additional 6 million nationwide to benefit from owning an ABLE account. And this includes 1 million veterans nationwide. So as we know, many conditions can and do occur later in life, such as multiple sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, paralysis due to an accident. So the ABLE Age Adjustment Act is making sure that people have equal opportunities to save money in America. ABLE programs are empowering people with disabilities to achieve and maintain health, independence, and quality of life. So the passage of the ABLE Age Adjustment Act would increase the number of individuals with a disability to do just that.
So where is the bill now? And what needs to happen to get the bill to the next step?
Sure. So anybody that's like me and they take notes, so feel free to jot this down. The Senate version is Senate Bill 331, and it was introduced on February the 22nd. It has been referred to the Finance Committee. It was introduced by Senator Robert Casey out of Pennsylvania. It has 6 original co-sponsors. As of May the 20th, there are 9 co-sponsors to that bill. On the House side, it's HR 1219. It was introduced February the 23rd. It has been referred to the House Ways and Means Committee on February the 23rd. It was introduced by Representative Cardenas of California, and it has 2 original co-sponsors as well. Currently, it has 58 total co-sponsors. So it's steadily getting additional co-sponsors. And that is the ultimate goal, is to get as many co-sponsors to these bills, especially the House bill, as possible. So as far as West Virginia goes, we do have Representative David McKinley that signed on April the 5th. And then a couple months ago, we learned that Representative Carol Miller has been assigned to the House Ways and Means Committee. And of course, as mentioned, this is where the bill currently resides. And so this actually creates an excellent opportunity for the Able Age Adjustment Act and for West Virginians if she's willing to support and co-sponsor the bill. So bottom line, it's just very important, that we gain her support. The chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, he wants to hear from his members. And of course, the members want to hear from their constituents. And so I will tell you this too, that WVABLE, we have an advisory board. We meet about 3 times a year. And at our most recent meeting, we had Christy Black, who's an advocacy specialist with the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council. And she gave an update that they had spoken to Representative Carol Miller's staff about the Able Age Adjustment Act. Of course, her staff was receptive and interested in learning more about ABLE Act and the Able Age Adjustment Act. And they actually had indicated that they had heard from one constituent. So Christy, she's recommending advocates reach out to her office to request support and co-sponsorship of the bill. And bottom line, her office needs to hear from more constituents.
Agreed.
Thank you, Sandy. What can self-advocates or the family members do to get involved?
Sure. So it's especially important for individuals that this law impacts for them to reach out to their elected officials and request that they support the bill and co-sponsor. I listen to, I'm part of monthly meetings with other national ABLE programs, and, we hear updates from other states. And one of the things that's repeated consistently, and I think we probably know this already as it relates to any legislation that we're wanting to have passed, is it's important for the elected officials to hear personal stories. And so if there is someone out there that this law would impact, or if you are a family member of someone that this law would impact, it's just incredibly important to reach out to your elected official, especially if it's Carol Miller, for example, so let them hear your personal stories. This is the reality of how the legislation would benefit the individuals. So just a real big focus on that piece.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Sure. So make sure for folks that are listening, we have folks, they know about WVABLE, or for those that are just learning about WVABLE for the first time, be sure that you are receiving our quarterly newsletters. We do include updates about the progression of the Able Age Adjustment Act in our newsletters. You can sign up by emailing WVABLE at wvable@wvsto.com. You can go to our website at wvable.com. If you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see in the second column, there's a link where you can click on it to request our quarterly newsletter. Also, you can follow us on our Facebook page. It's WVABLE. We are including posts to inform individuals about the Able Age Adjustment Act. Please share those posts. Again, it's incredibly important to get the word out and we always, one of our main focuses of WVABLE is outreach, just making sure that people know about WVABLE. Well, it's the same thing with the Able Age Adjustment Act. A lot of people just don't even know that this is proposed legislation out there that could affect them or their family member. So help us to spread the word and inform others to let them know that this legislation exists. And, again, if you are someone or are a family member of someone that this legislation would impact, reach out to WVABLE and let us know. We would love to hear from you and hear about your story. And we would like, and with your permission, we could share your story in our newsletter or on our Facebook page. Again, the goal is so that more people know about the Able Age Adjustment Act and how it would benefit those with a disability that occurred between the age of 26 and 46. And again, letting the elected officials know about this. The more that these stories circulate and are out there for people to hear and learn about, the more that it's going to reach the elected officials as well.
Thank you so much, Roxanne, for joining us today and explaining this important piece of legislation.
Thanks again, Melissa and Morgan, for including WVABLE and just giving us this opportunity to inform individuals about the Able Age Adjustment Act.
I hope that makes people aware of the bill, and we hope that everyone will do their part in contacting their members of Congress and telling them how important this bill is to them.
Yes, and you can remember to write your Congress members by email or call, and you can find all that content information on the People First website or the newsletter. We encourage everybody to sign up for that. I definitely learned a lot from Roxanne, and we hope you did as well. Again, if you have any more questions, go to WVABLE.com or you can contact us here.
Now, let's move on to our advocate in action. It does not have to be a person with a disability. It can be someone who is advocating for others, which is exactly what we have today. We would now like to welcome Kylie Smith, a student at West Virginia University, who wrote a policy brief on an issue that impacts people with disabilities at the university and will increase the inclusion and accessibility of the campus. Thank you so much, Kylie, for joining us today. So the first question, Kylie, is briefly explain the policy brief.
Yeah, so at West Virginia University, being in the School of Public Health, I had to take a lot of different classes on public health as well as public health writing and how to advocate for individuals as well as populations. And something that I was personally passionate about was individuals with disabilities. So I wrote a policy brief in a class where we talked about health policy, and it was designed to take anything that we saw at WVU that needed changed, updating, or just something we'd like to see implemented. And I decided to work on accessibility to education as well as just the physical and built environment within the school. So I wrote a lot of different pieces on this, but it had to mainly do with a lot of mobility disability as well as education and access within the actual classroom environment and just getting from class to class. So I had a professor that taught that class, and she saw the potential in the policy brief that I wrote, which kind of outlined steps I think WVU could have taken or can take, as well as what that would look like, what resources we would need. And so it kind of started off from there, and we built on that throughout the semester of last year. And it started with some ideas such as a module that would include just education on what it means to have a disability, what it looks like for someone's experience to be that, as well as the resources, the education, the policies that WVU has in place already and that can be moving. That module was a development out of that, as well as what can WVU to include accessibility on campus, as well as the physical environment. So that might look like mapping, or that might look like adding new ramps, that might look like adding new accessibility and ADA features throughout campus. So the policy brief itself was just navigating and kind of detailing all of the pieces that would it would take for WVU to become more inclusive and more accessible. And those were the two main pieces, but there were also just things like creating awareness on campus. What would it look like to maybe see an advocacy or awareness week on campus? What would it look like maybe to advocate for funding within the school as well as outside of it on individuals with disabilities and research within the school, but as well as just WVU wide, since we're a part of the Morgantown community and what they also need within the community. So the policy brief was just a multi-stage, multi-layer piece that took what WVU could do as an institution to help people with individuals with disabilities around campus as well as just within the community.
Hey, thank you, Kylie. Also, to go along with this question, how did the school react to you're wanting to build more awareness on disabilities?
Yeah, at first I was honestly, just before I even wrote it and before I knew that this was something that could come to be, I was honestly nervous. Like, are they going to take this as like, oh, we're not doing well enough, or there's something wrong with WVU? But I was so thankful and blessed to see an outpouring of positive reaction of, you know, they saw it as somebody's taking this initiative to make sure and hold us accountable for what's already being done and what can be done. And so I saw an outpouring of really, really positive reactions, not only from organizations that I worked with, which included some facilities management, ADA coordinators, the Office of Accessibility Services, the WVU Center for Excellence in Disabilities, and all the teams that I worked with were very positive and wanting that kind of fire put under them to make some of these things happen. I think it just took one person saying, let's do this, let's bring it all together. And I think that, you know, it could have been this negative thing of like, oh, we're doing enough, it's fine, just leave it where it is. But they saw this as, oh, someone's really taking a heart for this and wanting to move forward. And so I was really thankful to have that positive reaction and to have people being willing to step up to the plate and help me and not just say, okay, great, do it on your own. They were really throwing all the resources and all the people and all the things out there that I would need to make that happen. So I really saw a very positive and wonderful reaction to all the things that I was working on within this project.
Great. I'm really glad to hear that. And thank you, Kylie. What would be the end result of the project that came from the brief be, and how long this will take?
Yeah, so there was some, I think, layers to that, as well as just with the project itself. There were many things that I was hoping to see done. And I think some of it was within the course of, you know, this semester and even over the summer. Some immediate things were to create a mapping system, to create a geographic map to take all the pieces with GIS and all the systems to create a physical, you know, map that you can see online that you could navigate better and more efficiently around campus and around the different parts of classes. And so that was kind of a project that I saw continuing into the summer, and they're working on that right now as they're working on external features like sidewalks. However, I think that's something that can continue to be being built as technology increases, as information and as buildings get redesigned and designed and built and constructed. So that's something I could see going on for a long, long time beyond this year and even years to come, just continuing to update those types of things, but starting now and kind of building off of that. And another piece of that was a module, like I said, an educational module that undergraduate students would take when they come into campus. And the development of that is still in progress. And I hope to see that maybe finished within the next few years. But that's something that I'm hoping even students who are graduating, students who are in public health now might take up that opportunity, that project, and keep building it. And maybe in the next semesters, we would see that come to completion, which would look as sending it out and making it a part of the curriculum for students. But again, that result and the effect of that would last for such a long time, for whenever, as long as WVU is here, that they would be taking that module and they would be learning that. Every class that comes in would be learning about that. So those are kind of the main two outcomes from this specific project, but I see so many other pieces continuing on, like research, like education, maybe, like I said, an awareness week of disability and what accessibility is and inclusion. So I see this as a lifelong project for WVU, for other campuses, for institutions to continue on until there's no need for accessibility, which is probably going to be a while until we can see that fully.
Okay, thank you. So question 3, and you've kind of covered this already, but what motivated you to take on this project?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it formally came out of a class, but I think if I really dig deep and think about the passion for this and the desire, I do have a desire to help people just from my background in public health. However, I think growing up, I grew up around a lot of family members, individuals, friends, communities that maybe had a disability, or I knew of somebody who did, and I really wanted to take on that lens throughout my life. So I feel like every stage of my life, I've had this lens, even though I personally don't have a disability and don't have that experience. I've known people who have, and learning from them and educating myself from them, I've seen how, oh, this could be changed, or this could be different, or, oh, this isn't something that I need to fix or myself needs to take care of. It's something an institution needs to solve, or it's something that someone else needs to create a policy or create change that can affect other people. So growing up, knowing those friends, knowing those family members and their experiences, I said, well, if I have the opportunity to make that difference, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to write about that. I'm going to be passionate about that. And so it really came more about a personal desire, but I think having the education and the knowledge of public health inspired me and gave me the resources to be able to even do that.
Thank you, Kylie. And question 4 is, why is inclusion and independence so important for you?
Yeah, I think that is also such a multifaceted piece for me, because like I said, I had people and friends and loved ones in my life that have required inclusion and independence to be fully themselves, that they've needed that awareness or people assisting them and giving them those opportunities to be able to be fully themselves. And I think that personally, more of a just a personal desire and love for people. I want everybody, no matter their situation, no matter their spot in life, to be able to have those opportunities, to have nothing standing in the way of what they are called to do, what they are passionate about. And I think that inclusion is just something that should be inherent. And I think sometimes that's hard to always see how it's not always inherent in people and institutions, how it's easy just to go with the majority, or it's easy just to go with one group of people and satisfy them. But really, inclusion is a part of what should be everyday life and should be inherent to every system and every person. And then independence really, to me, means being fully yourself, no matter who you are and what you're able to do or what you see yourself as. I think independence really is taking that inclusion and saying, no, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to use this to say, no, it's not my issue. It's not something that's wrong with me, that's not true, that's just a falsehood, that really it is, this system isn't built for everybody, and that's not okay. That is, as people, we see that as a moral obligation, at least I do, to make that right and make that accessible and make inclusion a part of everyday life.
Thank you so much, Kylie, for joining us. And I cannot wait to see your finished project. And don't forget to let us know how everything turns out.
Will do. Thank you so much again for having me.
Wow, what an incredible project she's working on. And I can't wait to see the finished product. Don't forget that if you know someone who has been using their self-advocacy skills in a way that others should know about, please let us know so we can feature them on a future Advocacy in Action segment.
We would love to have you on a future episode of Legislative Matters Now, but I want to thank our special guests, Roxanne Clay from WVABLE and Kylie Smith, for joining us today. But I think we are just about out of time for this month's show.
Yes, we are. And thank you so much for joining us on this month's episode. And I can't wait to see you all again as we discuss the important topics of legislative advocacy. Until next time, remember, advocacy matters.
And so do you.
See you next time.